Dane and Derek is an uncensored, unfiltered podcast. You can find content warnings in the episode description. Thank you for listening. Hey everybody, welcome back to Dane and Derek, and today is a very special episode. It is episode 100 overall of our entire show.
We did it.
So yeah, we did it. We reached syndication for network television. We're on our way, NCIS. We're gonna beat you one day.
We'll catch you. We'll catch you, motherfucker. Frankly, though, syndication doesn't really mean what it used to, you know?
Nope, not anymore, sadly.
This is mostly relevant and timely. Probably still will be.
Oh, yeah.
Support the strikes, folks.
Yes, support the writers and the actors that are striking.
Fuck yeah. I am 100% for that. And for what little it's worth, no picket line crossing here.
Yep.
Derek and I are not in the guilds and not using anybody. I don't think this has no writing and no acting. So
that and podcast and new media are things that you can hire your actor and I think just your actor friends. I don't know about your writer friends, but if you would like to give them work to keep them fed, new media stuff.
Yeah.
There's a good infographic going around that has it all listed. That I do not have.
Is there? There must be there. I can't remember. There's a place you can donate to, right?
Yes.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Look it up. Google it.
Yeah.
Get informed. Support them how you can. That's what we got.
Yep.
But
it's
syndication.
Syndication. Yeah, we hit 100 episodes over the course of these last 3 years.
Yeah.
We started 2020, and then finished our first season 2021. Which is kind of weird. It's the only season we've done that's crossed over into 2 years.
That's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
And then season 2 was all of 2022, and season 3 has been pretty consistently 2023. So
I like that though. It lines up super nice. You know, like I like that it lines up with the year. That doesn't always happen, and I like it.
Yeah. We almost messed up. We almost were one number off, and we'd be constantly getting it wrong.
Ooh, I'd hate that.
You know what I mean?
That.
But yeah, we did it right. Which, man, 100 episodes.
3 years.
3 years. This is probably the longest we've collaborated on something outside of a D&D campaign. Because Heroics was only like 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's right.
And then, I mean, D&D campaigns are like 2.5 years.
No, I think this is the longest.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised because like lowest effort. Yeah. In some ways, you know, like I so appreciate you doing the editing and all of that. But you know, like we said, you know, we don't have to wrangle actors or write scripts or anything. Don't even have to do like the prep work of a D&D campaign. Really, most of what we talk about in terms of getting ready for this is either throwing around some episode ideas, scheduling, just 2 people. Busy as we are.
Yeah.
And then, you know, technical difficulties.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too because editing has become a smaller and smaller part of this process as we've gone.
Really?
We've gotten much better at radio.
Well, good for us.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done radio.
You've done it the longest.
Yeah, in counting actual radio, like man, since I was 18. So that was, what are we talking here? 9 years? So I've been doing radio 9 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, nonstop too.
Yeah. You never really caught a break. Because
no, I don't think I'd want a break.
yeah, I feel like out of all the mediums, writing and radio are like the two that feel the most you.
I think so. I mean, for such a long time, music was really core. But even that had aspects of both, right? Like, music, a huge part of music for me when I was generatively making music, all music making is generative, sorry. But like when I was like writing music, the process of recording, like making, like I liked making albums way more than I liked performing. Like always I've liked writing and recording music so much more.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I know that's a little on the uncommon side. So that leads into like I like playing around with microphones and like doing the audio editing stuff, which is way more in like the radio category. And the other thing I liked was the songwriting process. And frankly, the part I typically ended up liking the best, which is why I lead into like choral music when I was like deep in my music degree days, is because I liked writing the lyrics. Which I was actually thinking about today, is that was my into writing more narrative stuff, is when I was taking a few creative writing classes at the end of college. I went in and I was like, oh, this will be fun. Gracie loves this professor. This professor seems great. This could be a fun class. It's my senior year. I'll write some like lyrics and like a vibrato for operatic sort of music and choir pieces and stuff. And I'll, like, if I'm feeling zany, maybe I'll like really like write a little scene around a song like it was a musical or whatever. I basically ended up writing a radio musical, which was Sin and Lavender. I loved doing that. But anyways, it led to me end up like in that class, I would end up like writing just bits of poetry and prose here. And eventually I was just like, oh, now I'm just like writing. So no, you're kind of right deep down. But like radios doesn't feel as much you in my opinion. Like with your art, it's always like so much of it is visual and also a writing side of it, but even though we've talked about this, like if you had someone to write scripts for you, you would pick directing over. I've heard you say that before.
Yes. Yeah. Cause I think like, I feel like I like the whole process, and the more I can collaborate with people in that process, the better. And kind of homogenizing like all those pieces is what I really enjoy. But the kind of like podcast radio thing, I think like it was one of those things, like, I don't know if we've ever really talked about how the show came about, other than like the premise of it, like the conceit of it, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, because like the conceit, of course, is like we're two friends that are catching up, and it's a shoot the shit podcast. And it's basically like listening to our phone calls, which is something that was kind of born out of the last sort of, I guess, maybe like 6 years of like college and into post-grad a little bit. Yeah. Right before like lockdown, and it's sort of our intermittent long catch-ups that we would do.
Yeah, because it started out with those phone calls would be 2, almost 3 hours, which if you look at like the length of like our actual batches of recording, it's about the same still.
Yep.
But like the idea was it would come about in a sense of like we would talk for a really long time. At the end of that conversation, we'd be like, okay, we got to do this like more often, like because it would be that long, but like once every 6 months,
something like that,
like and then you pitch doing this as a show, which super leans into like both of our strong suits, and maybe some like it's concerning that it's so much easier to keep up a friendship and regular conversation with someone you care about when you make it a project.
Yeah.
I don't know what that says about our psyches.
Yeah, well, I think too, because like it was lockdown when we started conceiving the idea and like talking about it, but we were catching up more frequently, and we still were running into the issue of not enough time, not enough consistency. And I think, at that time, everyone was trying to make a podcast,
True.
Like everyone was doing podcasts because it was easy. You could do it remotely, and it's a lot easier to get good audio than it is good video. And that's something that maybe that's where this sort of radio-ness intersects, is because, we've had so many audio issues over the years making movies that I did get into audio to a degree to learn how to capture better audio, because it is the cheapest thing it is the cheapest and most important thing to capture on a film.
Yeah. I will say this. Yeah, a film with bad audio is way harder to watch than a film with like kind of crappy visuals.
Yeah.
Like if you like Cloverfield or Blair Witch, both of them have like, say what you will about the style, but it's just not great video quality. It's on purpose, right? It's actually, but the audio on both of those films is actually good.
Yeah, it's like pretty immaculate. Like,
yeah, because even though they're still kind of like trying to make it seem like it's like handheld capture or whatever, right? They do it in a way that it's not grating to the ear, even though I actually find the visuals of both of those films to be kind of grating to the eye.
Yeah. I gotcha.
So like, I think that's like really important for film. So I'm not surprised you needed to do that.
Yeah, but yeah, I think the thing that like, like we kind of realized was like, so, everyone was throwing around ideas. I think I had been talking to you about doing like a scripted podcast.
Yeah,
I think.
Honestly, we never stopped talking about doing a scripted podcast, and we have done one, which was Anything Goes.
Yeah, which you can listen to on our feed. Anything Goes, and
you can. I think you can listen to Sin and Lavender too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can listen to both. Yeah, it's funny, right? Because like everyone was getting into podcasts now, but when I graduated college, my internship like director was like, "Hey, you should get into podcasting. It's going to be the next big thing." But then like prior to that, we had made Anything Goes, and you had been doing like, experiments to try and do like an actual play show. And it's wild that like we've been in this game, so to speak, of doing podcasts for a long time before it's like supposed like burst,
boom.
Right? And boom, yeah.
So yeah, like I'm trying to think about it. So like we did Anything Goes. I did a scripted radio show with a friend of mine named Avery Martinez in college. He went by Avery Scott on the show, where we did like old school scripts redone. We wrote some. It was super fun. I've done a music show on KDUR down in Durango. Shout out. Fucking great. Sin and Lavender, which was the scripted one I did. And we took stabs at actual play podcasts twice, you and I.
Twice.
One was like half a YouTube thing. That was it was super fun to do both of these. And then the next one was super interesting, but I actually really enjoyed it. It was like this, the audio got fucked up on that one.
But it
was like a horror thing.
Yeah, it was like part horror, part adventure. Honestly, like, do you still have the audio?
I might have something somewhere, maybe.
Because like if we find that, I'd be so curious to like see if we can like restore it. And just,
there was like part of it was just there was a huge chunk that just was gone.
Oh, really?
Gone. The rest of it was immaculate. So there were those, and then I think of it as one show, level one into Diceology, and if you listen to Diceology now, basically the whole show's on one feed, and that's my probably longest single project.
Yeah.
Period. I think maybe eventually my novels will surpass it just because time.
Yeah.
And, but like I started doing, I started doing level 1 when I was 22.
Yeah, post-grad.
Post-grad, like just post-grad,
Yeah.
and then finished in May this year.
Yeah, so it's been 5-6 years.
5
years.
5 years.
Yeah.
5 years, just about.
Yeah, in traditional TV standards, 5 years is about when you hit syndication.
Yeah. 5 seasons in a movie. And so then this is now 3 years, and I actually would expect this to go longer.
Yeah, I'm curious how long we'll keep this going.
Yeah, because like the thing is, like with Diceology, there was kind of a goal. I was trying to build an audience, see if I could really catch on. There was an audience, but it was pretty small, and the necessary things to make it grow, I didn't want to do. I didn't, or I didn't have the resources to. I didn't have the resources to like do some advertising for the show. And I'd also picked a very hard thing, which is to do indie role-playing games, not D&D.
Yeah.
And when you do that, the already narrow actual play space gets even smaller. And so I'm extremely proud of that work, but is what it is. Whereas the goal for me at least, is to keep up with you.
Yeah.
And so until the podcast becomes too much of a burden upon probably you, because we did manage to keep this going through law school. So we've hit, like, I would describe as close to, if not full peak stress load for me. So
that's good.
Yeah, like I don't know if I've been more like burdened like professionally in my life. So if I could hack it through that, I think we're gonna hack it on my end. So like basically I foresee this going until you're like, I don't want to edit this anymore. You know? And then you and I are gonna actually, in air quotes, keep doing the podcast, because I think we'll just go back to having phone calls.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that's really good, because like I do consider this a bit of an art, even though it is just our calls. And I think especially, and we've talked about this before, like in society, so much of art gets caught up in success, which is code for money. Whereas for me, I actually think this is the most successful podcast I've ever done, because I had one goal and it is working stupendously. I have never gotten to keep over these 3 years. I have never kept up with you so well since we were in high school.
Yeah. No, for real. Yeah.
And that's fucking awesome. I love that so much. And so like total success, for me. And, you know, like there are things as I'm getting older, and I'm doing the thing I always do where I talk a lot, and I'll just finish this thought.
You're good. You're good. I was looking up something on the show.
Cool. There's thing that I'm noticing as I get older is that I am more and more grateful to have records of things. And I say this as I'm looking at my notebooks on a shelf, you know, like my old black one that's taped together, for example, though you know the one I'm talking about. I'm looking at, you know, a photo that I have of Gracie and my sister together that I know is so important to me, you know, like these things. And this is true of Diceology too. But, and this is like extremely morbid and sad, so just sorry everyone. I know we're celebrating 100, but this is just how I'm feeling, so hang with me, I guess. There will come a day in which I will never be able to hear you or Sam or Will or Natalie or Olivia or Taylor's voice spoken to me again. Be that just the ravages of time, be that the drifting apart of people growing older and being far apart. But that day will come. And vice versa. There very well could come a day where none of you will ever hear my voice spoken to you again. But it exists. And it is an extreme comfort to me that I could find it again anyways. And even in a less morbid and finalistic way of thinking about it, we're going to be 50 someday. We're not going to sound like this.
Yeah.
But, I can go back and I can hear Will Bangs cracking jokes in his early 20s with me again.
Yeah.
And isn't that a goddamn piece of magic? I don't know what else is.
That is.
So I am grateful for this. Mm-hmm. I don't know how, like you said, I don't know how long this is going to last, but there's a part of this that is also a frozen in time 3+ years guaranteed now of you and I's friendship and our conversations together. Mm-hmm. And that is such a precious thing to me. I have 100 conversations now of you and me, one of my absolute best and oldest friends in the world, no matter what.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think that's a really beautiful thing. So.
Aw. Yeah, no. I think that's a really eloquently way to put it. Like, I think that's kind of the beauty of the way art is in this day and era, right? Mm-hmm. When you use the technology right to make something like this that can give you that, like it can give you that memory years later, and it can still kind of like make you feel warm and like remind you of someone or something. I think that's truly the most beautiful thing about art, especially in this day and age where it's so accessible and readily available to be made.
Yeah.
And I think a lot about how, we have friends whom, we haven't gotten to see as often, and they in a way get to keep up with us and interact with us in a different way, and text us about the show. And there's been a lot of folks that we've like reconnected with,
mm-hmm.
While doing this show, and like a lot of folks that I've gotten the chance to talk to that I hadn't had the time to talk to.
Absolutely.
Because of this. And so, it always surprises me when someone tells me they listen to the show, because it's like such a weird show to listen to. Like, like, yeah, because it's just, because we're just two guys with almost the same amount of letters in our names, who have been friends for a long time. And I think, but I guess that's also the beauty of it, right? It's a hyper specific thing. We are two really tight friends talking about things any pair of friends could talk about. We just are putting it on the internet, and now everyone's privy to it.
Yeah. And I mean, like we talk a little bit about our lives, sometimes a lot about our lives. Mm-hmm. And then, we pick a topic, but not once have we picked a topic that isn't like something that would have come up, like, yeah. Like I'll use the biggest example I think of is Ma. Like Ma is just like this. It is not a particularly common topic amongst, I would say, the American culture generally, and even the American artistic culture. It just isn't. And it came up on a phone call, like it's just a phone call. Like, we do focus in on a topic because it is a show, it is a format, right? Like that's how you do it. But we don't talk about things we're not interested in. Yeah. Right? Like, and even when we do, we're talking about the fact that we're not interested in it, like our episode on sports, for example. And it's, like, I don't foresee us like ever talking about like the stock market.
Yeah, no.
Outside of maybe criticizing the stock market and how that's weird, and maybe how we think, or I at least think, it's bad and bad for, Hollywood. and things,
Yeah.
right? Like I think it's
Yeah.
but that's not, but like we wouldn't talk about like, man, the stock market's doing great. How's your investment portfolio? Which, you know, like I know, not well, but I know people who do talk about that because that's their interest. That matters to them. It's fun for them, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a weird thing to be fun, and like, I do not begrudge anybody their interests. I begrudge that one a little bit because I actually think it's doing damage to the world. But I love a game about rolling a 20-sided die and caring very much about the outcome of that roll. So I don't want to judge too hard, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a mixed bag, but you know, like, because I think like, yeah, I feel like we've done a pretty okay job at hewing between like things we're interested in, things that we have opinions and criticisms about. Mm-hmm. Although we haven't done a criticism based episode in a while.
No, and we rarely do like. I don't know if we've ever done like purely
It's not pure
critical.
It's more like debating, but it's still like we're clearly on the same opinion.
It's critique. We give critique.
Yeah.
Right? Like we've critiqued 5e pretty hard.
Yes.
And I fucking love 5e. Like, let's be honest, right? We were critical of sports, but not in the way of like we weren't sitting around being like, fuck the sports ball. We were like, this isn't our vibe, but we've both participated in sports and continue to, and it's kind of a cool thing. It's just not our thing, and that's weird and interesting. Isn't that interesting? Right? Like, like it's more like what I literally just did there with the stock market, where I was like, I think it's probably bad for the world that it exists, but like no judgment to people who really care. Like, you know, like that kind of thing. And I think that's actually good because I don't know, like I listen to a lot of like political and news podcasts. And like I don't know how much of that. I think plenty of that comes out in these shows. But
oh wait, that's actually a great way to tie it kind of back to origins of the show. Because you had suggested a political podcast.
Oh, that's right, I did.
Yeah, we were both like, okay, what kind of a podcast would we make? And we both like listed podcasts that we were really enjoying at the time. And
yeah,
it's like what, something the Nation.
Oh, Fake the Nation.
Fake the Nation. Yeah, you were listening to Fake the Nation, and I had just gotten back into Jake and Amir's show, If I Were You. And so I think like that was sort of our two comps for our kind of like casual talking podcast to kind of differentiate us.
Yeah, because we were talking about shows that we listened to that weren't narrative or actual plays or like improv shows, because I know we also talked about those because we were like, what do we like? And I know I listened like Hello from the Magic Tavern and Friends of the Table. Like I know I listed those things. But yeah, like what I was saying is that like the political shows I listen to, even ones with very upbeat hosts and people really like trying to like put the positive spin, like call to action or just say what the news is, by their very nature are pretty fucking depressing. Because even though I actually think that there is more good out there than people are aware of, and I know that the world feels like it's burning down, and it is. I don't want to say it's not, but also like, for example, a thing I learned pretty recently is that, you know, we're on track for like a 2 or 3, maybe a little bit more Celsius degree increase in global warming, and that's terrible. It just is, and we can do stuff about it. So like, please don't give in to the like climate nihilism and like I know it's so hard. It breaks my heart all the time. But what I mean to say, and this gives me hope, and I hope it gives someone else some hope, is the fact that in the 70s and 80s we were talking about like a 7, 6, 5 degree increase, maybe more. And we're not there anymore. That's not what we're on track for.
Oh, that's good.
Improvement has been made, right? Like, things are cleaner. Our cars don't do the same that they did. Solar and all of these other things are so much more prevalent. It just is. and that's worth being hopeful about. But that's not a very good news story now, is it? Mm-hmm. You know, and especially, and it also, it doesn't, it's not exactly newsworthy because, you know, we are facing the climate crisis consequences. Mm-hmm. You know, like every day we face them, the heat and all of this stuff. So what I mean to say is that I'm really actually very glad we don't do criticism episodes. I'm really glad that we don't do like top 5 video games we hate the most. Like, I'm so glad we don't do that. Like,
yeah, I don't think we could be a hate cast.
No.
You know what I mean?
I don't
like.
No, and there are some shows I like. Zero Punctuation is a YouTube video game review. Mm-hmm. And the reviews are often pretty like brutal. And at the end of the year, he does a top 5 best, top 5 worst, and top 5 blandest. And like that works for that vibe, but like that's not our vibe, and I'm glad it's not. And you know, honestly, I've been trying to I listen to a ton of podcasts outside of music and probably books or just writing in general. It's probably the art form I can consume the most of. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to mix up my podcast diet a bit. Because I'm like, this is depressing. This is too much of this one thing, you know? So.
Oh. Yeah, that's funny. I've actually been in the position of trying to listen to less podcasts.
Just generally?
Yeah, because I noticed I was consuming a lot of podcasts and I wasn't watching. It's like this always happens. I'll get into something, I'll watch a lot of it, but then I'll stop watching movies. And so it's like it's a thing where it's like I need to balance it out. Like I need to, for every like one movie I watch, for every 2 movies I watch, I can listen to like one episode of a podcast. That's like not quite how it works, but that is how I try to like trick my brain back into staying up on movies. Just because like I think, you know, like if you consume too much of any one art form, your main art will become morphed by it.
True.
Like I noticed like when I was working on an actual play show and consuming a lot of actual play stuff, the rules for editing wildly changed all the time. It based on like what actual play I was listening to. Although will say though, I did finally finish all of Autumn of Hiron. Finally, like many years later, like I'd listened to like some of Counterweight, and I'd gotten through most of that, and then I just could never really get through Autumn of Hiron. But I finally was like, you know what? Like I owe the cast of Friends at the Table at least one shot at this, so let me give it that to them. And my goodness, it was really great by the end. I was like really, really, really in love with just all of it, and I was like, wow, this is really what. This is maybe the closest to like real friends playing this game is. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was really enjoyable, and I will say, love Hella.
Hella for life.
She's my favorite character.
This is a friend. We're talking Friends at the Table here for those who are unaware. Quick recommendations if you want to listen to Friends at the Table. Start with Marielda. It's only, I want to say 15 episodes. Yeah, 15 episodes long, and it'll give you like the perfect vibe. And then if you're interested in the fantasy stuff, jump into Hyron. Otherwise, I'd say go listen to Counterweight. I am not super caught up on their show currently, but when I stopped listening, without a doubt, the best thing they ever did. I'd be really surprised if something surpassed it. You know, and I don't know. I think I'm kind of happy with the media consumption I've had lately.
Yeah, and I think that's good. Like when you feel happy with it, I think that's great. No need to change it. I think for me, like if I go on a YouTube bender, I'm like watching YouTube out the wazoo. I'm watching like 10 hours of YouTube instead of watching like one movie in a day, you know? And so I kind of feel like for me, it's like always trying to make sure that I always make the time to watch movies because that is the medium I am always studying. So
Yeah, I try and read a little bit every day. I rarely get the chance to like sit down and just read for an extended period of time straight, but I like to touch it every day. I think the things that I consume just the most of are podcasts and music because I can do that while doing other things.
Yeah.
I've been watching more television lately.
Ooh, what have you been watching?
Just finished the Swordsmith Village arc of Demon Slayer.
Ooh.
Super fun, super good. Currently watching Bleach Thousand Year Blood War arc as it comes out because we're in the second season of that. Gracie's gonna get me to watch Ted Lasso soon, I think.
Yeah, it's finished and you can just binge the whole thing. So
yeah, I don't know how much I like that though.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
well,
I'm a little, occasionally I like binging, but I've found more and more that I actually like watching week to week.
okay. Well, I actually take that back. It's not confirmed if it's over, actually.
Oh, interesting.
It was originally written for 3 seasons, but I think it's still up in the air. But
Well, we got to see what happens with Hollywood first, so
Yes.
might be a minute.
yeah.
I think I'll probably watch the 3rd season of The Witcher when it comes out. Most recently saw Across the Spider-Verse. Across the Spider-Verse?
Yes.
Yes, that's the second one.
Correct.
Yeah. And then it's going to be Beyond the Spider-Verse, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Fucking loved that. That was so good. What else? Oh, a bunch of albums that are really good have come out lately. That's been great. I've been reading some Neil Gaiman. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. No, I think the only thing that I'm like been playing Diablo 4. That's probably the most garbage thing in my art diet right now, if I'm being honest. Though the story is surprisingly good in this one, relative to the Diablo series. Anyways,
Yeah.
I think the only thing I'm unhappy with is the balance of my podcast. It's just too heavy on news and
Okay. Do you want some Rex?
politics. Hell yes, I want some Rex.
Okay. So here are some podcasts that I listen to or have been listening to.
Bring it.
So, if you haven't listened to it, the Director's Cut, which is the official podcast of the Directors Guild of America,
Ooh,
they do interviews with filmmakers, and usually they are from movies that have just come out and stuff.
nice.
So there's some really good interviews there to listen to. Highly recommend that. I've been listening to In Proximity, another film podcast, but it's about Proximity Media, which is Ryan Coogler's production company. He did Creed, Fruitvale Station, Black Panther,
Dope.
and there's some really great just stuff about the film industry. And then Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. I've been listening to a lot of that. I really like the Michelle Zauner episode and the Stephen Yeun episode. There's a ton of episodes, but it's a good, funny podcast. It's like Conan Never Left. And if you are into sports, Dane, I do recommend The Lineup with Dave Proden. It's a surfing podcast that I really like.
Oh, that sounds actually way cooler.
Yeah, they cover like World Surf League news, and there's just some really interesting stuff. I really enjoy it. That's probably what's been in my rotation. I also have another like production film podcast called Call Sheet. It's just like about like on like below the line, like crew members' stories and stuff like that. That's cool. That one's fun.
That sounds pretty rad.
Yeah.
I've been looking for more stuff. I'm going to have to give a couple of those a listen. I've been looking for more stuff, but every time I try and dive in and look around, it's just celebrity talk podcast after celebrity talk podcast. And I'm just like trying to find shit. And I'm just really struggling with it. But I will definitely give those a listen. Though, steering back to our own show, this episode is real loose, everyone, if you can't tell. Which feels on brand for 100, because it feels like getting back to, like, we're just talking. Because I know we're probably coming up a little bit on, we're coming towards time, I know.
Yeah.
I do want to know highlights from the show for the past 3 years, the past 3 seasons, and hopes for going forward.
Yeah. Before I give you that, I want you to guess something.
Okay.
I want you to guess how many downloads we've had across all 122 uploads. So 100, I guess 99 main episodes and 23 side episodes.
So how many? 109?
122 total that we've
122.
uploaded. And
Okay.
I wanted to guess how many downloads we've had of all time.
Let's say 6K.
Okay. You ready for the number?
Sure. Yeah, let me
We've
have
had
it.
24,597 all-time downloads.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. That's what Acast just told me. And I kind of had
Whoa.
to double take. Yeah. That's like 200 downloads an episode average.
Huh, that is so much more than I was expecting.
I'm guessing some of our D&D episodes have been timely, is my guess.
I'd believe that. I'd really believe that. Yeah, no, see, that's awesome. I'm happy
Yeah.
to hear that.
Yeah. It's one of those weird things where, like, I know we don't really care about the stats, but I was so shocked when I saw that number. I had to tell you, because our first season we had, like, I think we had like 1,000 downloads. And I just assumed that was the pace we were growing.
Yeah. Honestly, I have another idea about it. I think the OSR stuff we've been talking
Oh yeah.
helps us too.
Yeah.
Because that's like a tight knit community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that shit floats around. you
Yeah.
know?
Okay.
Wow. Huh.
Mhm. Yeah, I know, right? It's kind of strange, kind of comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me look at our catalog. Because now it is a catalog. I
A
don't know.
little bit.
I think in terms of highlights, I mean, like, I think I've enjoyed like a lot of our D&D episodes have been, of course, great. I think a fun one to edit was our Dungeons and Dragons movie review.
That one was a highlight for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and that kind of pushed me into the realm of like, oh yeah, we should do more episodes like this when we can.
Yeah. I liked it because it felt like we were going to the movies together.
Yes, it really did. Yeah, I remember when we used to do like those themed like series, like we did the 4-part Star Wars series.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I just love these titles, like the original Star Wars Strikes Back, Attack of the Phantom prequels, Rise of the Last sequel, Knights of other Star Wars media properties. Like,
Yep.
there were definitely some good things. Our
Yeah.
our first live episode.
Oh yeah. When was that the one? Did we eat burgers in that one? Was that one?
I think so. Yeah,
that one was great. I fucking loved that.
that was a good one. And then ultimately, I think once we made the commitment to bring in guests during our second season, like I think bringing in our friends was really solid, especially like I think it's a tie between I don't know. It's hard to like
It's hard to rank your friends.
it's hard to rank your friends, but there were a lot of episodes that were just really nice to like catch up with people on, and I think
I remember having a wonderful time with Clara and Taylor, of course. Will
Wills.
Bangs was pretty great.
yes, Will
All of
Bangs,
that
Will
was-
Cordell, Leah.
Yeah.
All of that I think was really good, and those are all people that like I think we've considered bringing back and asking again, and yeah. And then I think like the other thing, it's a subtle thing, but like shout out to Jen who does our cover art every season.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think like every season when we get the new art, it's always like such a nice breath of fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a really nice like you know what I'd love to do one day? I'd love to like somehow like make a physical print of our show and like a vinyl.
Yeah,
And,
that
like,
would be cool.
and make these like sleeves. Like that would be really cool just to like have like for ourselves.
Totally.
And then like yeah, and like Yeah, and so I think it's like those little things, and yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, I think those are probably the biggest highlights. I think when we were working on the Mecha show too, that was a big highlight for me.
I loved doing that. I wish
Yeah.
we could have actually.
Never say never.
Never say never.
I think there's a world in which and this kind of goes into like my hopes for the future, but like after our bubble density talk.
We're getting on that series, folks.
Yeah.
Wait, did the bubble density talk already come out?
Yes, it has. Yeah.
Okay,
it's
good.
The episode right before this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure because that last recording was weird in the timing of when things come out.
Yeah, exactly. And so like I remember like we were talking about that, and then we were talking about like D&D homebrew. And I know like every season we've done less and less episodes, and I know we've been trying to think of like more weird episodes to do. And I was like, for season 4, it'd be cool if we kind of took like that kind of multi-episode approach like we did with like some of the, like our Star Wars month and stuff.
Yeah.
We did it in blocks. So like we commit to like 18 or 20 episodes that season, but we do them in blocks and they're all related. So we do like 4 episodes on bubble density, 4 episodes on Dungeons and Dragons homebrew, 4 episodes on something else, right? And
That'd
they're
be
sort
really
of
fun.
like and they're sort of like little like week to week, and we would kind of I think go back to the week to week where we'd record it in bulk and then edit and then release them all at this like week after week, and kind of like treat it like almost like micro arcs in a season. And that was an idea that I had been floating around. And I think like ultimately I think like the show constantly feels like we're continuing to iterate on it. It doesn't really feel like we are kind of we haven't shown up and been like, ugh, we got to do another episode, you know? Like
Yeah, because there's no requirements for it. You know, like there just isn't. There just aren't. There are no requirements for this show. You know, like what are we? I'm like, what are we supposed to do? Like we're just. The format is we talk about something we're interested in. That is the format. And so as long as we're doing that, then we're in the format and we're making an episode. And the other requirement and the concept of the show is it's our way of keeping up. It's our conversations, our phone calls, right?
Yeah.
And that changes as our lives change, right? Like during the pandemic when we started, super easy to get weekly episodes out. We're not doing anything anyway. Super easy to find a recording time. Everybody's trapped, right? Like
Yeah, we would record during lunch breaks, during the early mornings, late nights.
Now you're making documentaries, and I'm in law school, or currently, as we're saying this, I'm working at a law firm, right? Like, it's different times. And that's if the show didn't change, I think that's when it would fall apart, right? Like, to talk about like Diceology a little bit is that Diceology actually couldn't come with me into law school. That's like straight up the truth. I couldn't keep up the editing. There's no way I could have done that. Like, and we tried to do like, okay, what if we recorded enough episodes for a season, a year-long season in the summer, and we recorded and edited them all in the summertime, which, you know, being in the summer now, that would have been feasible. It would have been a little hellish, but it could have worked. But in our discovery of the scheduling, and then the discovery of like my actual editing pace, when the scheduling doesn't line up all the time, not possible. We tried to change the show and it couldn't. That's when like the format was not conducive to a change like that. And that's okay. You know? Whereas this is way more flexible, and like, just to talk about what I'm hopeful for is I'm hoping it continues to change. I'm like, it sounds silly, but I'm kind of hoping we have more duds. Like when we played Magic, not the best because there was no visual element. You know, nobody could see our cards, right? Like that just didn't quite translate, you know?
Yeah.
But we tried something. By contrast, I actually loved the Dungeons and Dragons movie one. Like, that was fucking great. Because, like, we tried this completely different way of recording, and I thought it worked. I thought it was super fun to go on the journey together. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah.
You know, I want to do more stuff like that. I love that idea of doing, like, little cores of episodes. You know, and that feels like I said about, like, feasibility during law school. That feels feasible. Because you know what that sounds like to me? That sounds like 12 recording sessions. That's what that sounds like to me. Maybe more, but you know, like, we've talked about trying to figure out a way to, you know, do something on the road someday. Like, I still want to figure that out. You know, I fully expect that sometime soon, just because we're kind of due for it, we'll do another in-person live episode, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the timing's just due. Like, I'll be out in LA sooner or later, and you'll be out in Colorado sooner or later, and we'll get in something, you know?
Yeah. You know what would also be a fun live episode? Live with an audience. like we get some of our close friends in a room and we do a podcast with them in the room and we just record their reactions.
Yeah, I would like that. You know what we should do with that, though? I think it should just be a Q&A.
There we go.
Where we get, like, people we really care about to just ask us questions. Just it's a live AMA with people who love us.
Yeah. Wow. That's actually a great idea. That could be really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the evolving of the show as we evolve as people and as artists and as times change, I think is what has kept it going this long, and like we both have said, will keep it going long. And I don't, like, it's one of those things where, like, the show has gotten to a point where it's a pretty easy show to sort of, like, put together in the way it is right now. And I think I'm kind of excited to kind of dedicate, like, more specific time to recording and editing something and assembling it versus what we've been doing this past season. I think it'll be nice to kind of, like, try something different and, like, do the more weird episodes. I think season 4 is going to be the weird season.
It very well might be. And, like, you know, like, I can see different times being different ways, right? Like, if I knew that, if I was, like, telling you, like, Derek, I'm just working for this firm now. If my life looked like it does right now for a much more extended period of time, I'd be like, Derek, I have time to go back to, like, weekly episodes. I can find the time for a 4-hour recording session again, right? Like, that is, like, but I'm due back to school in T-minus a month, right? Like, I you know, like, just there's just, like, that's the thing, is that, like, I foresee more changes in life, and I can imagine the show changing with it as opposed to other projects. And I think that's something that's super interesting about it, looking back at 3 years and looking back at 100 episodes, is other projects I've done are bounded to the time in which they exist and they came from. You know, like, I love the books I've written. I'm very proud of them. I could never write them again. I'm writing other things now. But they belong to the person I was then.
Yeah.
Diceology belongs to not just me when I say this, but a man post graduation and not who didn't really know what he wanted to do, who was just needed something to do with his life for a little while he figured some shit out. And it couldn't come with me any further, you know.
Yeah.
and you know, like I think that's true of most artwork. And some art lasts are these ongoing things that last a very long time, you know, like for example, like This American Life, the radio show, started in the 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on it goes, you know. And that format, it proved to be extremely flexible, or like, but there aren't a ton of art forms that last that long, right? Like we made jokes about NCIS, but like NCIS is actually an aberration. It's bizarre how long that show has gone on for, right? Like, most movies exist as single entities. Some of them are series. There are now, the MCU has changed things a little bit there, but you know, like, but they're not the same thing. You know what I mean? Like the only things that I'm like are actually readily coming to my mind are radio shows and like comic strips, right? Like the Peanuts started in the 40s, and the run actually done by Charles Schultz ended in the 90s, right? Like that shit's wild. That's 50 years, right? Like, you know, like This American Life, Car Talk, Wait, Don't Tell Me. I think that there are just very few formats that are actually conducive to long form expression that doesn't take that doesn't take the form of like large individual chunks released at one time, or doesn't take the form of like a follow-up series by the same artist, right? Like, you know, I'm trying to think of like a really, like Willie Nelson has been releasing music forever, you know, same with Dolly Parton, right? Like they release new music for a very, very long time. But like Bruce Springsteen might be a better example, actually.
Yeah, he does like an album every year or something, or every 2 years. Yeah,
I think he's in more recent memory released something.
Yes.
Though I think Willie Nelson released something when I was still in undergrad. But more of what I mean to say is that like, but those albums capture moments, right? It's not this weekly, bi-weekly thing, right? You know.
Yeah, this is probably the most steady look at art and ourselves that we've had to look at and listen to over the last 3 years. You know, like where you can see the most gradual changes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think about that and like how strange. You know, like I find that very beautiful, and that's why I do feel like this might last a minute, you know.
And you go.
I was just thinking of something Austin from Friends of the Table said once on I think a side podcast from their Patreon a while ago. He said, you know, like when they put the Patreon together, because money started happening, so it had to be like a business. They had to like think about that stuff. He was asked, how long do you think this is going to go for? And he had to like come up with a number of years. And he didn't reveal what that number of years was. But he was making the point of like, Friends at the Table will end someday, you know, but me playing games with my friends will end when I die, you know, like, and that's how I'm feeling about this show is like, I don't know how long this goes on for. You know, you put a metaphorical and in that case, like a legal gun to my head, you know, I'll come up with a number, an educated guess. Or like maybe more accurately, I would come up with a set of circumstances. Like if this thing happens and this thing happens, if this happens in Derek's life, I think it might go this, like, that might be a sign that this is going to end, right? Like, and maybe I could put a number on that. Mm-hmm. But you and I talking isn't going to end. You and I doing stuff together just isn't going to end. I don't think.
I think. Yes.
And so I it's just very interesting because I at the same time that I think about that number as we're kind of looking back, I also am thinking about, like, yeah, but at the same time, this format is a long one.
Yeah.
It is a flexible one, and it has survived a year of law school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, we might be, like, we might be here. We might be here, folks. Like,
yeah. Like, I was like, to my point, to like what I was gonna say, which was basically that, like, on a similar vein of this, but I think, I don't know if it would ever truly end either. I think there is a space where we step away and do something else for a little bit, and then come back for a little bit, and then step away again. You know, like, you know how there are some shows where they're technically over, but every now and then they'll get on the mic and record an episode.
Sure.
Like,
and like, same, I mean, we basically already did, right? Like, there was a period of time where we released other shows because we're like, sorry, folks, like, we're busy.
Yeah.
You know, I've been saying folks a lot this episode. I'm tired, so I'm falling back on vernacular.
It's all good. But yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, like, to your point, like, this won't be the last iteration of us collaborating. I very much think, like, whatever comes after, whatever comes next, I think this show has definitely solidified our, like, creative collaboration, you know, in a way that I don't think we ever could have predicted or thought of in high school or college. And I think, like, I'm really grateful for that, that we still have that, and that we can, I don't know, still make things and still have a good time and still not have any pressure attached to it. Because sometimes that is just what you need.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when you were telling me, like, Derek, don't worry, I will need this in law school. Like, I will need to have something else to do. Like, and that, like, really stuck with me, because I was like, oh yeah, it is kind of like a different thing in the routine of life. So yeah.
It is. And in this experience of going to law school, I have been utterly grateful for all of the things that bind me to the rest of myself. Because all aspects of you as a person are drawn out or muted by different things you are doing, different people you're around, right? And law school draws out my analytical side, my academic side, my a very serious side of myself, a very problem-solving side of myself, a side of myself that loves challenge. But it does not pull very hard on my creative self or my humorous self, or the part of me that is just deeply in love with people and nature and art in general. It does not. I do my best to bring empathy and kindness and morality to it, but it does not pull those things on you. It just doesn't. Not naturally. You have to bring that to it. And so I have been utterly grateful for all of the people and things like this show that have pulled back out of me these other things. You know, my interests in films and what people think and have to say and what they try to communicate, you know, and things that pull me back to younger parts of myself. Like, you know, like, Derek, you and I met when we were 14. You know, like, we've said this before, but, like, fewer and fewer people are going to have known you as long as they have, right? And that doesn't mean that these people aren't important or whatever, but they will not be able to touch in with you, right? Like, a memory of me exists for you pre-cancer, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, true.
You know, my partner, the person I've spent the last 8 years with romantically, like just my partner in life, she doesn't know that about me. She doesn't have a memory of me that is not that. Like that person just doesn't exist for her beyond being told that he existed.
Right.
For you, that person did exist. We weren't very close, but he did exist. It was a couple months briefly. It was pretty brief, but like that's still more than the vast majority of people I know and more than most of the people I interact with on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so like it brings me in touch with a wider band of myself, and I hope it does for you too.
Yes. I think I had a friend out here in LA who was talking to me about how like sometimes like you just need to you need to talk to someone or work with someone who just knows you better than anybody else. And sometimes when you're feeling lost, that's the person you should talk to about just whatever. And there was only one person I could possibly think of, and it was you. And I think it's because, you've seen me through so many parts of life. And like certain people, to your point, certain people only see us for what we are now, not for who we were and where we started. And it's important to get in touch with that kind of old part of yourself to kind of remind yourself that, I don't know, you still got it.
Kind of, yeah. And I mean, I think we spend a lot of time, especially I think it's pretty understandable. I feel this too, but I think we spend a lot of time cringing at our younger selves, and not remembering that person was loved too. Mm-hmm. I think about that, and like we were not. I would not say I was my best self when we met. Of all the selves I have been, I'm not sure I could point to exactly which one I think is the best one. But that one's not it, for sure.
Yeah, I got you. I feel you.
But that doesn't make that person bad. It doesn't make them without redeeming qualities or any of that. And I think that's amazing. Yeah. And it's hard to touch in with that unless you connect with some people who have known you a while. And because they can remind you, because they stuck with you through all of those things, all of those moments, right? And normally I think for a lot of people that ends up just being family, which often I think is why family is so important to people. That's not to say they shouldn't be. I totally, I think more accurately to say that in all honesty, Derek, you are family. You are my family. And that's amazing. So.
Yes. I will say the same to you. My brother in arms.
100 down, 100 microphone battles down, hundreds to go.
Yes. Here's to another couple hundred.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I think that's a good place to end it for
I think
this
so.
week. Yeah.
I think so.
I still gotta edit and upload it for this Wednesday. We're recording this on Monday, July 17th. This is coming out July 19th. So,
yeah.
Well, good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dane, for this incredible last 3 years of podcasting.
Thank you, Derek. You can't see it. Nobody can see it, but I'm currently raising a glass to you and all of our friends and everybody listening, and to what's to come in the show, in life, all of it.
Yes. Let's take a big chug real quick.
There we go.
There we go. Drank out of my Nalgene. Okay. Well, goodbye, good night, good morning, wherever you are. We will catch you all next time.
Talk to you soon.
Out here on the sand, not far from land, shore Sure, I'm warm, but I wish I was cold.